Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today, zooming in on a topic requested by a viewer in terms of really delving a little bit deeper into what is the narcissistic stare. Now, realize that the narcissist, as thought by many psychologists, are operating from an internal sense of insecurity. They have a void. They have kind of a undergirding sense of hostility, negativity within. But the narcissist will definitely show an outward sort of mask, which they show to the world. And if you are not complying with their supply needs, if you are not fulfilling their perfectionist standards, if you are not playing along with their game, the narcissist is going to seek to control you and manipulate you in a number of ways. And one of the most, I guess, prominent and well-known is that of hostility. And hostility is a form of using an excessive amount of negative emotion, negative physical body language, negative verbal commands, which act at condescending to another to essentially create a sort of superiority or a feeling of authority in the narcissist, which generally they will manipulate and exploit those, especially who are vulnerable, those who are weak, those who do not know better. So it's actually kind of sad the way that the narcissist will pick on those who are weaker than them, who are in intimate relationships with them, who essentially can't get away for whatever reason, in an intimate relationship, living with them, in close proximity, etc. So, the narcissist stare is a look of hostility, anger, or rage, which one will use to try to overpower or seduce the victim or the supply. So the narcissist stare, instead of having just a gaze or a look, the narcissist will try to use kind of like a really sort of mean, hostile, angry stare, which has a lot of anger behind it, a lot of resentment. And the anger and resentment is always felt within the narcissist towards themselves. So in other words, even though they might project this sort of look at their supply, they might try to manipulate, or they might try to control through a look, control through this sort of narcissistic stare. Realize that it's a projection that they really truly feel inside about themselves, which they're throwing out to you. So in terms of why this is so controlling and why it's so overpowering, because it's completely severing your sort of foundation or your sort of trust that you might have with a person. So when a narcissist does this, they're completely saying it's only me in the relationship. It's only me that matters. We have no foundation of trust. We have no foundation of common reciprocity or really anything, because if you don't have trust, you don't have anything. So the narcissist will use this as a ploy to get others to motivate. And this sort of thing it's a lot of people, I think when they first are attracted to a narcissist, because they're so much maybe in their own world that they might seem to have a certain self-control or power, when in essence it's really them acting out of such severe anger, insecurity, that they have just this automatic on mask. You never really quite relax with these people. You never quite feel comfortable with these people. You never quite feel at ease. You kind of always feel like, they're on to, something that's going to be somewhat unpredictable. So you always feel like you have to maybe have your guard up or to be pleasing them. A lot of people describe it as walking on eggshells. And that look, that narcissist stare, which the viewer had noted as kind of creepy, is again, it's coming from that inner sort of void, which is really, if we look at the origin of the narcissist personality disorder, many psychoanalysts have thought that it arises during childhood when that child was either overly gratified in their needs, so they developed sort of this grandiose, sort of overly self-important, overly invested in themselves mentality where it was only their needs and nothing but their needs that were satisfied. So for example, if a child is 1, 2, 3, and the parent is able to kind of really, kind of like flagellate or satisfy all that child's needs to, really, no other child interferes, no other adult interferes, this child develops an overly emphasized sense of self. And so they develop, it's just like when they're a very young child. So that young mentality, which you should grow out of, and when you go to school, you realize, there's other kids in line, there's other kids who have something to say, there's other kids who have families, with different backgrounds, and you can learn about them, and that people are different, and that's what makes life interesting, is that people might have a different value or a different take on things, rather than you being the only one in the room or the only one who needs all the attention. So it's oftentimes felt that the narcissist, develops that overly grandiose, overly self-invested sense of self early in childhood. And then likewise with a borderline, they have just the opposite. So the borderline personality has such a void lack of self. Their needs were so deprived that they have such a bottomless sense of self that their facade, their mask is really kind of an overcompensation to that lack of their needs being met. And, really in both disorders, the narcissist will really pursue their goals to the detriment and to the harm of other people. That's how overly invested they are in their goals and objectives. So with that in mind, that's what really creates that narcissist stare. And I hope that explanation helps and put things in perspective for you. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos help. Please do share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support.